My name is Mike with Knifewear. Paring knives, petty knives, utility knives. They come in multiple sizes, but frankly, there's about 3. Something around an 80 or a 90 millimeter, 110 to 130 millimeter. Then we have something at about 150 millimeters. They generally do all the same work, but sometimes the little one's better for smaller jobs, bigger one's bigger for bigger jobs. And today we're gonna show you what you can do with that variety, help you pick out what's gonna be the best one for your needs. A little petty knife like this is great for those jobs where you're not cutting on a cutting board, but you're gonna be using the knife in your hand. Something like peeling a potato. It's a little bit more comfortable because you don't have as much of a blade swinging around. If you do use a paring knife like this and you do get a Japanese knife, I would really suggest avoiding that technique where you run the edge of the knife right into your thumb. These are super sharp, that will cut you. Do it where the knife just stops before it hits your finger. These little petty knives are also good for just cutting little eyes out of potatoes. I like using a knife like this if I'm cutting the core out of a tomato. They're also good when you're trying to do something like peeling an onion, where you can trim the top off, get underneath and peel the skin off the outside of your onions, all kinds of various little jobs. You can get into using them on a cutting board, but frankly, a longer knife's gonna be better for doing something like that. Now, I find using a peeler to be a much faster, more economical, and frankly, easier way to peel a potato. But if you really do like using a knife to peel stuff, this little guy called a bird's beak, sometimes known as a turning knife, is really great for peeling with that hooked shape on it. It's perfect for going around those curves. It's a really nice thin blade, so you're gonna only take a small amount of the skin off, leaving behind as much flesh as possible. Something like this 135 millimeter petty knife is great for doing all kinds of stuff. I have a potato, I can chop a potato, right? Sometimes a bigger knife is gonna be good for doing this job, but if you just wanna cut one potato, maybe this is all you really need. You can see you can easily get that sliding motion in. It's a little bit short, so I do hit my knuckles on the counter as I'm chopping, which is not that comfortable. So if I was cutting for a longer time, I'm gonna choose a taller knife. Now you can see when I'm using this knife, I am holding around the handle. My index finger is down below. I try to avoid the grip where I put my finger across the spine of the knife. It really tires my hand out quite quickly, and I feel like I end up just shoving the knife through. I like to get a nice sliding motion. It actually helps to make a shorter knife be a little bit longer, and it cuts better. You'll also see my left hand, I've got in this sort of claw shape. Really, I'm just tucking all my fingers in behind my middle finger, and that gets most of my hand out of the way, so it makes it a little bit safer and reduces how much finger I can actually cut. Now this 135, not only great for doing some smaller jobs on your cutting board, I still find it short enough that I can use it in my hand to peel stuff as well. It can be a little awkward, maybe that little knife's better, but this will still do the job. Now, I love this little Masashi petty. He does this cool thing where he pulls the heel of the knife up forwards and the balance point is right behind the heel of the knife. It's super comfortable to grab. I like using this even for some small chopping jobs, something like an onion. If you're really trying to get a fine dice with an onion or a shallot, this type of knife is gonna be really helpful. You can get really accurate, really micro thin slices, and just sliding the knife through, you don't really need any pressure at all. Now I've made these little slices through this onion vertically, one horizontal slice to get rid of some of the big chunks. I can just simply go back over it. Now I'm gonna show you, as I'm doing this, you can see my knuckle from my middle fingers bumping into the cutting board. It's not the most comfortable thing. And if you do think you'll be using a knife like this sort of length, I mean, on a regular basis, maybe consider something like a kobunka. It's the same thing, it's just really tall. So it makes jobs like chopping an onion super easy, and it's really comfortable. So if a longer knife is intimidating to you, or maybe your kitchen is really small and you've got a tiny space to work in, Kobunkas are super versatile. I really like the Zuyin petty knife. It's got a nice fine texture on it, real nice curve to the blade, fine little tip. I don't know, I think this is one of my favorite utility knives or petty knives. And the texture I really like because it keeps your knife from sticking on the carrot. Let's see how fine I can slice here without getting it to stick. Oh, a little bit, not much. Look at that. What a super little knife. So a knife like this I really find is useful. Like 150 millimeters, you can do all sorts of cutting with it. You can get your little diagonal cuts. You can do your roll cuts, right? You can put it into baton and cut carrot sticks. And frankly, one of the things I find 150 millimeter long knife really good for is when you come home, you've been out shopping all day, you're hungry, you need to stuff a carrot into some hummus and feed yourself before you die. This is a really helpful knife to have in that kind of a situation. Now, another great advantage to having a long, slim knife like this is it's good for going around curves. Whether you're peeling a beet, a big rutabaga, or a grapefruit, it makes that job work really easily. I like doing this kind of a cut with a grapefruit where you can't just use a peeler, you got so much pith in the inside, you gotta get all that off, and a peeler is just not big enough to do that. So I like to cut the tops and the bottoms off to expose the fruit on the inside. Then, starting with my knife just behind the white line of the pith, I make one smooth rolling cut and keep moving around the grapefruit, rotating it a little bit, repeating the same motion the whole way along, peeling the grapefruit. I'm gonna have to come back and get that off. That wasn't a very good job. So you just keep going until you go all the way around and you've peeled it. You wanna get a nice curved motion. You wanna do this in 7 or 10 sort of slices, depending on how big it is around. If you try and do it in 4, well, it's gonna be quite square shaped. Nice thing when you're doing this is a really good technique for something like a salad, or maybe you're trying to do a garnish for a dish. You want a citrus salsa with your crab cakes or something, because it's nice to cut out purely just the fruit that's on the inside. I like to cut this over a bowl so it just drops right into the bowl. I take my knife, I line it up with the little white line here. That's the membrane separating the segments. And I cut in between those and then just drop the segment out into the bowl. And I just keep moving around. And I get all these perfect, pure little fruit segments without any of that pesky membrane that you have to chew. Really, this is just a rebellious way of cutting where your mom told you that you had to eat all the skin because that's where all the vitamin C was and stuff. Well, you know what I say? Not today. I'm just gonna keep moving around. I'm not using a lot of force because I don't want to push all the way through. It's very soft, it's very easy. Just a gentle sliding motion and you will get all the juice or all the segments. Just a gentle sliding motion, you'll get all the segments of the fruit out. You can of course save this by eating it. You can squeeze it and get all the juice out, whatever you like. Something that's really great with a long petty knife like this is that you can use it for doing lightweight butchery. Trimming sinew off of meat, taking the small bones out of a chicken leg or something. It just can do the work. It can be a very versatile knife. If you are going to be doing a whole bunch of butchery, get a boning knife, you deserve it. But if you're not and you're just gonna do some small trimming out of packages from Safeway, a petty knife will do the trick. Something that's great with this petty knife is it's got this tiny little tip. Taking the sinew off of a piece of meat really requires you to have a fine tip on a knife. That way you can poke in and start an incision to get the knife slid underneath, so you're gonna take off just the sinew and none of the meat. We've got this great little piece of pork tenderloin here, a really fast thing to cook at home. It's a nice piece of meat and it does have a bit of a sinew across the front here that you want to take off. It can become a little chewy as you cook it, so you just want to clean it up a little bit. If you're worried about any kind of waste, something that I like to do is take all of these bits of trim and I'll put them in a Ziploc bag in my freezer. And it might start out with just this tiny bit in a larger Ziploc bag. But by the end, I'll have something filled up and I take it, I roast it in the oven, put it in a pot, cover it with water, make a quick stock. not having to use the stuff out of the cardboard box. When I'm going about doing this, I try to keep my index finger on the top of the blade so I can keep the knife parallel to my cutting surface, and I make the little incision and slide the knife away from me. I also slide it with the knife on a bit of an angle so the food is slicing, not shoving the knife through. And then I flip the knife over and then I bring it back. Try to keep the flat face of the blade riding across the surface of the meat. If you push down with your thumb on the bevel side of the knife, that'll drive the edge further down and into the meat, making a bigger chunk out of the meat, which is not what you're looking for. Chunks, this is not the stage of chunks. So when you have a small piece of meat like this, you might want to slice it up. Say you're going to put this on a skewer and pop it on your charcoal grill, your conro. You can easily just go through and make thin slices of your pork tenderloin. If you do choose a petty knife for some of your lightweight butchery, you might want to look for something that's got a bit of a thicker spine, making it a bit more of a robust knife. A thin blade will be more vulnerable, a little bit easier to chip, because while we are going to be cutting around the bones, there is obviously the chance that you could run into the bones, and that's not our goal, but a thicker blade will be a little bit tougher for that. Something like this chicken leg is a perfect job for using your utility knife, and you can easily just run the tip of the blade down until it comes in contact with the bone. But I'm not pushing it into the bone, and I'm certainly not trying to drive through the bone. If you do touch the bone with the knife and you feel it stop against the bone and the bone seems to grab it, maybe a part of the knuckle seems to grab it, that's not the time to push any harder, and you certainly don't want to twist the knife at that stage either. So I just cut along the white line of fat there, and that's going to be right over top of the bone. So I tried to cut down either side of it, and now I can see where the bone runs along here. So I just start making incisions, and I'm running into the bone. We'll tune the edge of the knife up after with a honing rod, but you can easily cut around, and you can see I'm not using a lot of force. I don't need to. I got a sharp knife. That's going to make the job safer. Trying to do a job like this with a dull knife is when you start doing weird stuff that ends up where you slip and the knife runs into you. If you are cutting and you're feeling like you're awkward in some way, or you're not too sure if you're doing it right, probably what you should do is stop, put the knife down, take a look at what's happening and adjust what you're doing. Maybe you need to move the piece of meat around, maybe you need to move your hand from one side to the other. But in general, you want to see where the edge of the knife is traveling, and you want to make sure any part of your body is not in that line of fire. So you can just move the leg around a bit, slicing to remove the bones and the knuckles, just cutting underneath. Great, so now we've got this bone, we can put that off to the side, we can put it in the bag with other types of trim that we might be saving in our freezer for a stock. And now we've got this great piece of boneless chicken leg. Bread it, fry it, roast it, grill it, steam it, soup it, saute it, penne it, paillard it. I don't know, what else can you do? Petty, paring, utility, whatever you want to call it. Short little knives definitely have a place in the kitchen. They can do so many different jobs. Little ones are great for doing any sort of work you're going to be cutting with in your hand. Medium-sized knives, they can do all sorts of stuff. Big, long 150 mil petties, they're great for doing lightweight butchery, slicing, anything. You know, these knives do so much. They can do really detailed work, and they can just chop a small amount of stuff. Again, a big chef's knife might want to be put into play if you're going to be doing a whole bunch of cooking, but maybe you're just not into bigger knives, you like the feel of using a smaller knife, it feels better for you, go for it. There's a whole world of them out there. If you're trying to decide which petty knife is going to be good for you, if you're just trying to add one more knife, you've already got a chef's knife, I think this sort of 130 millimeter range is going to be great for what you're going to need. Otherwise, these knives are good at doing either small jobs or small amounts of work. Any one of them is going to be a welcome addition. Get all three, go for it. And if you enjoyed this video, you'll want to learn some more knife skills, Please check out more of our knife skills videos. We have been making a ton of them. We really hope you enjoy them.
Do I need to do, hi, my name's Mike. Welcome to Knifewear.
No.